how you doing? Welcome or welcome back. Thank you for being here. If you do not know, my name is Tanisha, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you how to make Norwegian Selbu Mittens. I'm sorry if I butchered that pronunciation. If you have followed me for a little while, you would have noticed that I had put out a video where I recreated an outfit worn by one of my most favorite artists right now. Anyway, long story short, she released a documentary recently about her song Runaway. In this documentary, I noticed that she was wearing these lovely mittens. They just like caught my eye, right? And then I was like, that's knit. That's color work. Those are beautiful. I want to make those. But I had absolutely no idea how to make them because I knew that I would probably have to use double pointed needles, which I've never used before. And if you click this video, for one very important fact is that I am going to show you how to make these mittens using circular needles. I will link some other videos down below of like how to do certain steps. In this video, we are going to be doing this pattern. It's pretty similar to the ones that Aurora is actually wearing. So this video, it was actually meant to be more of a creative process. That's kind of what I do on my channel. I show the process of me making new things, learning new techniques and whatnot. But I started and stopped these mittens so many times because one, I am too lazy to learn how to read a pattern. Also, one particular thing that was so confusing to me was the thumb section. A lot of the tutorials just kind of skimmed over. I personally haven't seen anyone make a tutorial on how to make these certain Norwegian mittens on circular needles. So that was my main reason, and I've created this tutorial. I really wanted to explain the thumb. I'm going to assume that you know your basic stocking knit and maybe you've done some color work before. That is my long-winded introduction. I'm really sorry. Without further ado, I'm going to get started. Oh, and by the way, I decided to make matching ones for my husband.
Ooh. Maybe you should wear these extra gloves. My hands are starting to get sweaty.
You've had this pair of extra gloves this whole time?
Yeah, we're in the Rockies.
I'm going to kill you.
What?
Onto the tutorial. Got to cast on 56. So once you have 56 stitches, you're going to have to join it in a magic loop. All you have to do is roughly half what is here. Okay, so I'm just gonna, you can do it exact if you want. That would be better. And then pull the cord from the middle. So that it looks something like this. You gotta make sure that all of this is pointing on the inside before we join it, otherwise it'll be twisted. And then all you do is you put them all the way up to the very tips. You might need to do a little bit of this. Push, 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 then you spread it out. It'll look something like this. The working yarn is on the left. And then what you're gonna have to do is you literally, we're going to flip it so that the working yarn is on the right. And then what you're going to do to join it, you're just going to knit the very first stitch as long as the working yarn is on the right. You might need to just pop it on. Now that that first stitch is put on, it's all put into a circle. We're doing a 2 by 2 rib stitch. So the first stitch is knit, second stitch is going to be knit. So what you can do now is leave this here, take the right side out. So that when each time you work on the row on the left, it'll make like a bow shape. There'll be like some cord on the left and there'll be some cord on the right. So then the next stitch we're just going to knit, making sure you pull it tight. And then, because we're doing 2 purl, you got to bring it back here and then do 2 purl. And then bring it forward, 2 knit. And then that's what it's going to look like. And then we're going to do that all the way. 8 rounds. So 2 knit, 2 purl, which is creating ribbing. I'm going to show you one more time once we finish this how to get onto the other side. This is the row that we just did. This is the one we want to go to next. So whenever you want to switch to the other side, you have to pull the side that you want onto the needles. And then this is the side that we did before. You want to pull that out. Pull that out so that you're constantly making this bow shape. A good way to remember it is the working stitches are on the left and you pull out the needle on the right so that the new stitches can go on the right. And then we just continue. All the way around, and then that'll be row 1 done. And then when you get back to the start, you just do all of that again and again for a total of 8 rows. Alright, this is after 1 row. I just wanted to point out that it is totally normal to see this gap here. I'm not really sure why it happens, but as long as each time you go back to the starting stitch, you just really pull it tight, you should see this gap start to disappear by like row 3. This is what it looks like after about 8 rows. We're going to be doing the stripes now. Gonna need this ball here. Because we're doing ribbed stitch, if you continue with this darker color with ribbed stitch, you're going to be seeing you're not going to be seeing straight lines, it's going to be like poking out on the purl stitches. So you're going to do a row of just knit stitches. Grab your new color. All knit stitches. So once you've done the full row, then you're going to do another row of the brown, but as if like it's the normal 2 knit 2 purl. So what this does is the first brown makes sure that none of that white in the purl stitches would be poking through. It's a nice like straight, clean, straight line. And then the second round of this color, you have to match up with these 2 knit 2 purl whatnot, even including going back to this original block here. And then that ensures it's like nice neat line. And by doing the same 2 knit 2 purl, 2 knit 2 purl, it allows for that same shape to travel all the way through. I'm literally going to get this amount done and then come back and do 8 more rows here. And then we can get into the actual color work. Sorry, I know that I said that we were going to do 8 rows. We are still going to do 8, but on the very last, so I've done 7 here. On the very last row, I'm just going to do like 1 whole row of just knit stitch and not 2 knit 2 purl. So I'm going to do this last row. Okay, that is all the ribbing done. At this point, you can even try it on. Now I find that the ribbing that I ended up doing for this is actually quite looser than what I would have liked to go, but just because we have a similar amount of stitches for the actual colorwork pattern, this is just the easiest. You can make your ribbing less and like tighter, depending how big your wrist is, as long as you can add those stitches in a sort of seamless way before doing the colorwork. I'm going to do the next 2 rows, just these 2, I'll pop it up on screen as well. But I'm going to do these 2 rows, which is pretty straightforward. So the very first stitch is going to be this dark color. Boop. And we're just going to be working in stocking knit from now on. It's just going to go dark, light, dark. We're going to do the same thing on the next row, except instead of the first stitch starting with the dark color, we're going to start with the light color. So I'll go and do those next 2 rows and then I'll meet you on the next row. We've done 1, 2 rows of the color work pattern. Now we're going to do row 3, and this is where I have decided to decrease by 2. What I simply did was I decreased the first 4 stitches. You knit the first 2 together, and then I just knit the next 2 together as well. And so that has gotten rid of 2 stitches, which brings us down to 54 stitches in total, which is what we need for this color work to make sense in this size. After you've decreased 2 by 2 stitches, do 1 whole row of just the white. Just for reference, I have actually already done the right thumb, and so this one is going to be the left thumb. I'm sorry if that's a little bit confusing, but the chart shows the right thumb. Everything is exactly the same except that I am just going to be putting the thumb on the left hand side. Basically, I followed the chart. For the first 3 rows of the thumb, you do not increase, and it just made more sense to me that I made sure that I put a white stitch on the right hand side of the thumb stitches and a white stitch on the left hand side of the thumb stitches, right? So that way when you do increase, you'll have this nice white border, which is what that's like the extra stitch that I put, this white stitch here and then this white stitch there. So basically for the thumb, the only stitches that you increase is when you can see that the pattern is going 1 out, 1 out, 1 out, right? So it would be on this row, on this row, on this row, and then finally on this row. I'll show you when I get to the increases, how I made like the color change sort of smooth and like flow with each other. Okay, so for the thumb, I'm gonna put the thumb box here now. We're going right to left, remember? So we're gonna start on the first row for the thumb. A white stitch, brown, white, brown, white, brown, and then you end with an additional white stitch. So that's the thumb part on the first row done. I will show you what I mean for the first row. There is this big border. It's of 3 stitches each that go along the border. Anyway, we just have to account for that border line. So let's start the first row together just so that, you know, it can make more sense. I'm gonna be changing this up because obviously I'm doing the opposite thumb, but just for this thumb part, I'm gonna show you how I did it on the right hand side, as if it's the right thumb. So you got to start with that 1 white additional stitch. Okay, and then you just do the normal stitches of the thumb, which would be dark, light, dark, light, dark. Okay. Remember, this first white stitch here is like the border that I added, okay? And now what we need to do is we need to also put that white border on the left of the thumb. Okay? These additional stitches on the side, like I said, these white ones here, that's just what I've added to kind of put a white border around the thumb. I think that's what the chart says anyway, but it's just really confusing, and so I just feel like it's an easier way to realize that it's like whatever stitches you see on the chart, just remember that you've always got to do a white on the right hand side and a white on the left hand side. And then what I mean by you just jump to where the checkered part is on the left hand side, I'm going to put the chart back up on the screen again. Can you see this line on the chart where it's just all white? This is technically, this last white stitch is technically that whole line. But what confused me about it is that on the screen, on the chart, it obviously just looks like a straight line. But we all know that if I was to just put this white border as I'm increasing, it's not going to be a straight line, it's going to go towards the left. So anyway, if you keep that in mind, where it's like, okay, this one white line is technically that border that I've been doing on the left-hand side of the thumb, you don't need to do another white stitch, right? So just, you've already done the white, and so just pretty much treat that straight white line as the this white border that you're going to give on the left-hand side of the thumb, right? So we can just automatically go to the very next stitch, which is this one here. It's a dark, and then 3 light, and then dark, 3 light, so on, so on, so on, right? The rest of the glove is actually pretty straightforward. I just feel like I really wanted to try to explain the thumb portion to you as best as I could. That makes sense in my mind, because the rest of the pattern is pretty straightforward. Like I think that the easiest part of this whole pattern is actually the snowflake sort of snowflake design. Like you just follow the rest. After 3 rows of the thumb, you increase on the right and left, and then after another 3 rows, increase again, right and left, and so on and so on, right? So when you see this step, it's increasing, right? And the best pieces of advice for this, because it can get a bit confusing, for this checkered part that goes on the left-hand side of the thumb, as long as you will pick up on this, it's like a 3x1 design on this checkered, and like after a while, I just stopped looking at the actual pattern for this like palm side, because you realize that it's a, you know, after you do like 3 or 4 rows, you realize that it's just repeating the same pattern, and you can just line it up by yourself, if that makes sense. Anyway, like I said, I'm gonna have to undo this, what I just showed you, because I'm actually doing the left thumb. So I'm going to go ahead and do 3 whole rows, and I will get back to you once I have completed the 3rd row and I am ready to increase for the thumb. Your thumb, if you're doing the right one, will be over here somewhere. But as you can see, 1, 2, 3 rows of the thumb section, okay? These 3 stitches on the end, those 3 stitches on the end is actually this side border, so technically this section is not part of the thumb. We're gonna do the 4th row now. So I'm going to, for you, if you're doing the right side, you're actually going to start on the thumb, but I've got to finish this, I'm going to keep calling it checkered, whatever. I'm going to finish this checkered design here just real quick. Okay, so, but anyway, we're on the 4th row, and so we have to do an increase on either side of the thumb. So, do you remember how I said that there's always that white stitch on the right and then a white stitch on the left as like the border? So we're always going to knit that like normal, and it's always going to stay white, because that's just the white border. So we're gonna knit that white border normally, white. And then here, in between the border and the first stitch of the thumb, that's where we're gonna do the increase. And if you want, if you take a look at this, I did it incorrectly down here actually, but if you take a look at this line here, the dark line, this is where I did all my increases correctly. And see how they're all joined up nicely? I was supposed to do it down here, but I did it wrong. But they all join up nicely to make this sort of line. So after you do that first stitch of the white, just normal, we have to increase, and to make that, because the next color in the stitch is actually this brown color here. There's this bridge part right here. You have to pick up a stitch from here, and since we want the brown color to make that sort of cohesive line, you do not pick up the white strand. If you were to pick up the white strand, you would definitely see that white. So I'm going to pick up the dark strand, place it over. You've got to knit that into the brown color. Okay, so we've just added a stitch. There's that white one that you always just knit normally, but then we've added a brown stitch. And if you look at the pattern, now we're going to do opposites. So we don't do anything else. You put white and then dark, and then white again, and then dark, and then white. Now remember, just on the left hand side, that is that border on the last stitch of the thumb, and then just before that white last border, we have to add another stitch in here. And so just like how we did on the right hand side, we have to pick up a dark strand, pop it on the left needle, knit it with the dark color. And then we just knit that last white border stitch like normal, keeping it white. And yeah, you only increase every 3 rows. As long as you keep in mind where it says on the chart to do those increases, then you should get this very gradual sort of increased look. And then eventually when you get up to like, I don't even know what row it is, but where that square stops, that is where you will take those stitches off, because then the thumb part is like separate. You just like leave a thumb hole. I'm pretty sure I'm going to speed my way through and go all the way up to where I need to actually take those stitches off, and I can meet you on row 18. This is where I need in the pattern to take off the stitches. This is what I meant by, I did it correctly on this one. You can see the nice gradual brown line here, brown line there, with those 2 white stripes on the side. So that's the left thumb. Looks really good. You're just going to take a darning needle, and I've just put some like high contrast thread onto it. When you cast this off, you're only going to go from the last dark stitch to the last dark stitch. Might have to slip this one onto the other needle, just for now, so that's not in the way. Grab my needle. It's easier to do it from this side, like this. Up until that very last brown. So you don't include the white borders, only the brown. And then that's the last one. So we can pull that through. Tie a little knot. These ends are gonna annoy me. Okay, so you've got all your stitches sectioned off. We're gonna cast on 11. So we're going to go light, dark, light, dark, light, dark, and so on until you have casted on a total of 11. This is how I've been casting on. Grab thingy like this, and then you do this with your thumb, twist over, and then put the thing like that. That makes a stitch. Do it like this. Twist and through. Okay, so once you have done those 11, connect it to this very next here. So just continue knitting, connecting it here. Go around. Gonna keep this white stripe on the left, so basically on the side of the thumb near that middle part. We're gonna keep that white stripe the whole way up is a white stripe. Continue like normal. I'll meet you back here in maybe like one more row, and then we can try the glove on to see how it fits. Try it on. Now we can continue all the way up until we need to decrease. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. Once we are up to this section of the mitten, we need to start decreasing so that we can make this point. When we start decreasing, it's actually very, very simple. You do not decrease on this like dark bar. You have to decrease on either side. So you're just going to follow that sequence until you get to the very top, until you have like 3 stitches left or something. On either side, you decrease 2 stitches. So on one side, decrease once, twice. On the other, decrease once, twice. So basically one whole round, you're decreasing 4 stitches. You always have to decrease on that very first white stitch here, and then on the very last white stitch. I like to think of the mitten having two sides, so it's like front side and back side, because that way you can know whether to decrease with a left lean or a right lean. Because we want this pointed going up like this, we have to decrease with a left lean here, decrease with a right lean here, and then you flip it over, decrease with the left lean, decrease with the right lean. And so that makes that pointed shape. Okay, that's normal. Now, this is where we're gonna have to do the decrease. So, to decrease for a left lean, very simple. You're gonna slip one stitch to the right needle, slip one more to the right needle, take the left needle and pick those stitches up again, like that. Yarn over with the white, pick it up, and then you've just decreased. You've taken away one stitch and it's a left lean. Gonna do the rest of your pattern like normal until you get to the left side. Now we have 3 left, so we've got to decrease. I'm gonna do 1 normal, and then this, to do a right lean decrease, it is literally the easiest thing ever. You just knit 2 together. Put your needle through both, yarn over, and that is knit 2 together. And so we have decreased 1 on this side, 1 on this side, and then as you keep going up, it'll, you know, as long as you do a left lean here and a right lean here, it'll go up. But you know, as soon as you get to the other side, it's literally the same deal. Like, you always just go decrease with that first stitch after the bar, decrease with that last white stitch just before the middle bar. But as long as, you know, you do a left lean, right lean, eventually you're only gonna have 6, you should only have 6 stitches. You can just decide how you want to decrease. I just kind of like, I like knit 3 together here, 3 together there, and then that left me with 2 stitches which I just like knit together and then ended up pulling. So I just kind of like smush them together. I don't really have a proper technique for doing that. Okay, so I am gonna go finish that, and then I think we'll get into finishing the thumb. Go ahead and finish that, and then I'll meet you when we have to cast back some stitches to finish the thumb. Alright, so we are in the home stretch. All the stitches here are this part of the pattern, and then on the back here it's going to be this part of the pattern. You don't have to do anything for this side except slip this needle back into the stitches from right to left. You're literally just going to pick up all of the stitches, push that on, and then once that's on, you can cut the thread. Make sure you've got all of them, and then you can pull all of that out. And so that's back on the needles. Now we just need to figure out this top part, which we have to pick up stitches. And the easiest way that I find to do that is to use a very small crochet hook. Since our needle is facing that way, we need to make sure that this needle is also facing that way once we put the stitches on. From the right going to the left, because that way the working yarn will end up in this corner, which is where we're going to start actually knitting in the round. This would be the first row that we need to cast on in like the color order, because technically when you work on this side, it's like you'd be facing it upside down, right? But since we're casting on right side up, we're gonna have to look at it in the opposite way. You're pulling the stitch up from the middle so that the tail part can be, you know, not seen. So that's 1. And then the next one is white. Yep, so I've picked up 3. Anyway, just keep doing that all the way around until you've got 13 stitches, and then I'll show you what I do next. I've got like 3 more to pick up. I'm gonna do that a different way because it's just getting a bit difficult. But let's just pretend I've got all of the stitches on. My crochet hook has like a little hole at the bottom. Literally, I'm gonna poke the hole in the back of the hook and then it just slides through, which is handy. But like I said, I've still got a few to pick up, so I just thought it would be worthwhile showing you if the technique that I was using before was too hard. You can pick up stitches one by one with a crochet hook and then just directly put them on to the needle and then tighten it. That might be a lot easier. So this is what it's looking like. And now you are finally ready to work this up. And if you look at the chart, you still read it from right to left, but you're just going in the round, just like the rest of it. So, since you're using the magic circle method, you need to just pull this out. Not all the way. Remember that bow, just like how you did the rest, literally follow the pattern. It might just be a little bit more difficult and taut because it's such a small space. So we're starting on the very first row. So I guess it doesn't really matter what color you cast on this part of the glove, but I just kind of wanted it to match up. So you're literally just going to continue on with the pattern, but then when you get up to this line, it is exactly the same as the top of the mitten. I'm talking about the decreases. And then you get something that looks like this. I'm gonna go finish that, and then I guess onto the reveal. They're done. They are done. They're beautiful. I weaved in the ends today. Oh, they're so gorgeous. They're a little bit pointier than I expected them to be. So the light ones are like the ones that Aurora wore in her video. Quite similar. And then these are my husband's matching ones. But I've only completed 1.5. Trust me when I say that these, at least for me, because I throw the yarn with my right hand, I'm not super fast at knitting. So one of these mittens takes me, like if I was just to do it non-stop, 2 days. Like one mitten for me is like 12 hours. 12 hours of work. So I'm holding like a whole day's worth of work in my hand right now. That's kind of insane. But I really want to finish this one. I still got to do the thumb and the top and whatever, but I want to finish his so that we can wear them together and it'll be matching. And yeah, but I really tried to finish it before filming this, but yeah. If you look closely, I think I did stuff up in a few different places. If I had to change one thing though, it would definitely be the ribbing at the bottom. If the ribbing was just kind of like tapered in, that would just look so much nicer. But I still like it. 2 thumbs up. 2 Norwegian thumbs. Oh, they're so warm. Oh my goodness. I love them. I did want to quickly say that my husband did try these on when I finished them and he was like, they're a bit too tight. Like his hands are a bit bigger than mine. So a handy tip, if you would like a handy tip, I don't know. What I did, I made his a little bit bigger, just a tiny little bit. So I just added extra rows down here before I started the actual color work. And then it was mainly the thumb part that he said was kind of like strangling his thumb. And so, you know, when you take off the thumb stitches, I didn't cast back on those stitches straight away. I actually didn't join back in the round and I did 2 rows. So if you cast off from here, I actually went back and then back again. So technically I knitted it flat. So I did like 2 extra rows to add that length. Then I cast on those stitches that were, you know, to join this section here, you know? And so that just gave it a little bit more room in this section of his thumb. Yeah, it's definitely more roomy. I really hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. Let me know if you need any help with anything. If you end up making your own mittens, then please tag me or please send a picture to me on my Instagram. My Instagram is linked below. I would love to see them. It's obviously not my pattern, but I would still very much like to see. As always, thank you so much for being here. Happy knitting, good luck. Leave any questions, comments, concerns down below. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!